Okay, so I'm here to explain what happens when Jupiter goes into the 12th house in our birth chart. So let me start by explaining what is the 12th house. The 12th house is a house that's originally ruled by Pisces and originally ruled by Jupiter. The 12th house represents loss. The 12th house represents imprisonment, foreign lands, and isolation and spirituality. The reason that it represents loss is that I associate the loss as like a loss from materialistic things, because this is a very spiritual house. It's like detachment from the physical world. The 12th house can represent like your subconscious, you know? It's like a detachment from this physical realm. So things, in a sense, you're sort of get planets and stuff, they sort of lose their materialistic attachments, their materialistic qualities, you know? Like, for example, since this house represents spirituality, I mean, it represents spirituality, it also represents imprisonment, jail. People become real spiritual when they go to jail. They become real philosophical and spiritual and all gifted and stuff when they get to jail. Or you can look at a hospital, you know, as a form of imprisonment, you know? If you could be in hospital for a long time, depending on what you're in there for. And when you're in a hospital, you know, similar to jail, you got a lot of time to reflect on stuff. Especially if you're facing some disease or surgery that could potentially kill you. You can be really deep and reflective and thinking about God and what's next after this, and you sort of find yourself in your final days, or potentially when you're in a hospital and stuff. Those are the only two quick little temporary forms of imprisonment that I can think of off the top of my head, but those are the type of environments that can be seen with the 12th house. You know, if the 12th house represents isolation, like I said, the hospital and jail, they can represent forms of isolation, and it's in that isolation, it's in that alone time, that silence, that where you have no distractions, you have nothing but time to focus on yourself, that you find yourself, that you find a higher divinity. And you might just get so used to not having to deal with things in the day-to-day world, like the 6th house, because the 12th house is the opposite of the 6th. The 6th house represents the everyday world struggles, you know. The 12th house can get so used to that isolation and not have to deal with those problems that they just want to stay there. They're like, wow, I really like this solitude. I got used to staying in jail. I actually like going to the hospital. I don't gotta work. I don't gotta deal with nobody's problems. It's just me. I can deal with this. It's boring, but it's so fun finding myself and finding peace. The 12th house can represent drugs, because drugs can, especially psychedelics, they can give you hallucinogens and, I don't know, give you like godlike experiences and bring you peace or whatever. The 12th house is a moksha house. Moksha means liberation. It means separation and stuff, freedom. So the 12th house, it gives you it's one of the houses that gives you a form of freedom and liberation and separation from the earth, from the material realm. So that's the main thing that is stripped when a planet goes into the 12th. It loses its materialistic qualities. And when we explain what's Jupiter, as you should already know, Jupiter represents children. Jupiter can represent a husband in a woman's birth chart. Even though there's many other planets that can represent a husband, I mean, even though there's many other things that you would look at to see a spouse in a person's chart. Jupiter represents divine knowledge and philosophical wisdom. It represents gurus and teachers. Jupiter is, yeah, that's just about it. A good, well-placed Jupiter can make you go about learning and teaching astrology and spirituality the right way. So when Jupiter goes into his own house, because it rules the 12th and the 9th, when it goes into the 12th, this is someone who might travel, who might want to travel the world and spread their knowledge, spread their belief system, because Jupiter can represent belief system. And The 12th house is foreign lands, foreign countries. But you see, the 3rd house is short distance travel. That's like maybe a state or two away. The 9th house represents long distance travel. That's like traveling the whole country. But the 12th house is foreign lands, going to a whole nother continent, a whole nother country. So that's like the whole world. So Jupiter in the 12th house can make someone who would want to go to another country or travel the world or something and spread their knowledge and belief systems to other people. This is someone who could really enjoy solitude. This is someone who just really feels connected to God and their divinity when they are alone. This is someone who might want to go to churches. I mean, not go to churches. Go to jails and hospitals. And maybe, you know how they be having therapists and counselors or deacons and priests or whatever come to jails and speak to the inmates. You might want to do something like that. Or if there's like a church in a hospital, you might want to speak at a church in a hospital or something, you know. We can see you might be inclined and interested in doing things like that. Spreading your knowledge in isolated places is something that we could see you doing. Someone with Jupiter in the 12th house in general might just enjoy traveling. Someone with Jupiter in the 12th house, they would naturally just be a great mystic. Naturally is very good and interested in learning spirituality. But if not, you see, Jupiter in the 12th house, it can manifest in wanting to travel the world and spread their knowledge the way that I stated. But also, I mean, it also depends on the sign that Jupiter is in, but, you know, just generically. Also, Jupiter, you know, they might not want to spread their knowledge. They might just want to simply just go in nature, go in their room, lock the door, and just meditate all day. Just astral project all day. That'll be their way of just getting closer to God or whatnot. But like I said, we could see someone here who might want to be a counselor, you know, be a counselor and psychiatrist or whatever, because the 12th house is like our subconscious. So in Jupiter is like a guru, a philosophical teacher, divine knowledge and wisdom. You might want to use your divine knowledge and wisdom to help deal with people's internal mental problems potentially. But that is just about it in regards to what happens when Jupiter goes into the 12th house. It's pretty simple. Hope this gave you some insight and clarity on what happens, and thanks for watching.